Welcome to the Emerge podcast, where Ronnie Doss shares insights regarding life, leadership, and personal development. For more of our resources, visit ronniedoss.com. Now, let's join the podcast.
Hey guys, it's Ronnie Doss. Welcome to the Emerge podcast. Today I have my lovely lady friend, my wife, my woman of 16 years, Miss Jennifer Doss. Welcome to the Emerge podcast.
Hello, and thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm
16.
16 years. Sweet 16.
What?
I know, I don't even look that old to be able to be in a relationship with you for 16 years. You don't either.
We started dating when I was 10, do you think?
No, that's not
I'm just
safe
kidding.
at all. You're very much not 10. But anyway,
We're just young.
We were young.
Youngins.
So let's talk today about, I want to talk about a guy. His name's Ignaz Semmelweis. And he was a Hungarian physician. Yes, Ignace, I-G-N-A-Z, Semmelweis, S-E-M-M-E-L-W-E-I-S, Hungarian physician, middle 1800s. This is a guy who discovered what Louis Pasteur then took and turned more into germ theory. He confirmed that we could be carrying invisible things with us that could cause harm to other human beings. And for Semmelweis, he was in the OB, the obstetrician department of Vienna General Hospital. And what these people were doing at this time, if you guys can imagine this, like can you imagine going to the doctor now and the doctor not washing his or her hands before they saw you? Well, for many years now, that's been the case. And so no matter how many practice members a doctor sees throughout the day, he's always washing his hands. We know that now. Any bathroom you go into in a restaurant, it says employees must wash their hands. But in the middle 1800s, before Ignaz came along, right, Dr. Semmelweis, before he came along, one of the things that these guys were doing in this hospital is they were doing autopsies downstairs in the morgue of the hospital and then going upstairs and helping women to deliver babies.
Wow.
And that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so there was this thing, it was this onset of what was called childbed fever. And the mortality rate at one point got to almost 30%. So 3 out of 10 women were dying from this childbed fever.
That were there to give birth.
Right.
Right.
And so it said, and I don't know if this is a confirmed fact, but that women got to a point where they were giving birth outside the hospital, out front, and then the doctors would take the baby inside. The women were afraid of giving birth in the hospital because the mortality rate was so high. So either way, 30% mortality rate is crazy, right? And so what Ignaz found, Dr. Semmelweis, what he found was that when you wash your hands, the mortality rate actually dropped to below 1%. And so he started saying, well, maybe I'm the problem. What could this be? And so he starts studying this more and more, and he finds out that if you washed your hands with this lime solution that he came up with, that it was way better for the patients, for the women, for the babies. And so he starts sharing his findings. And what's crazy about this is why the story is so intriguing to me, Jen, is because this guy, he starts to share his findings. This is what he knows to be true now. He's seeing it firsthand. And his colleagues started saying that they took offense to what he was implying. And they couldn't believe that. And so 20 years after he started to discover this, he was committed to a mental asylum because his colleagues, even his wife, said that he was so passionate about this thing and you couldn't see it, he couldn't prove it, that he basically lost his mind. He winds up being put in a mental asylum and where he is beaten nearly to death by the guards and winds up dying less than, I think it was about 2 weeks later.
Wow.
And so here's a guy that has uncovered something. He's found a truth. And as he starts to share the truth because of something called belief perseverance, his colleagues wouldn't believe it. And they're like, are you insinuating that we in some way are the problem? And that's ultimately what he was saying. It's like, hey, we are the problem. Not just I'm the problem, we. If we keep doing this, we're the problem. And so during a time where everybody's talking about washing their hands and all that, and I'm not getting into that debate today. I'm not getting into the debate whether you're wearing a mask, not wearing a mask, whether you're leaving your home or not. That's not the point of this. I think the reason I wanted to share this is it's just so incredible to me how we have such a hard time handling new information. And once we've locked onto something, that's what this belief perseverance thing is that I just mentioned. Once we've locked onto that, we typically reject any new information at all. And what happens is we continue to behave a certain way, And like in Ignaz Semmelweis's case, people are dying or things are dying, relationships are dying, our physical health's dying, right? Our businesses are dying.
For him, his career
For
had
him,
to die.
his career,
Like
his marriage, he dies literally, but because of the rejection of what people think that they know. And so looking back on it, like Louis Pasteur came along, Germ Theory confirmed everything Ignaz Semmelweis was about. And he said, look, the germs, I mean, these are things that we carry. You know, even Ignace was talking about he wanted anything that came in contact with his patients at all, that it had to basically be what we would call now sterilized, or at least cleansed before it could come in contact, because he knew that there was something going on. He couldn't explain it. And so people took offense at it. And I think this is the thing that we do sometimes, is we wrap our identity up into something that we think that we know so much that now our political views have us wrapped up so much that we can't sleep at night. We're arguing with people that we care about. Families are falling apart, all these different things. Our religious views do the exact same thing. The view that we have of ourself, our self-image, our self-confidence is so wrapped up in some truth that we think that we have with limited information that we had before, and now we're not open-minded. Now, some of you hear this, you're like, well, Ronnie, you're saying that I should believe everything? No, I'm not saying believe everything. But what I am telling you is that you've got to be willing to make adjustments in your life moving forward that serve you in being your best version of you, not committing yourself to some mental asylum where you're in the golden, invisible prison that we have when we lock ourselves into this thing within our mind. And we always say that the worst prison you can be in is the one that you don't know that you're in. It's called the invisible prison. It's in your mind. I call it the golden prison sometimes because it unlocks from the inside. But it's these beliefs, and they can really mess us up. And so I just wanted to touch on that today. I think there's some stuff, and I'm sure that you can elaborate on it, Jen, but I just think there's some stuff in there for all of us to say, hey, I don't want to be like the colleagues of Ignaz Semmelweis who rejected any new idea, new potential, new possibility for the future by being so dead set on what I was taught by people before with limited information. And ultimately, that's why these other doctors rejected what Ignace had to say, is because of what they had been taught. They took it personal. I can't believe you would say that. I'm offended. And they weren't open-minded at all. And look what it cost. Think of all the women that it cost. Ignace, by the way, was known as the savior of mothers. That's how they coined him, because he did save many women's lives because he was willing to wash his hands. But these other doctors, they weren't willing to do that just because they took offense at it and didn't believe it. And so, anyway, that's the mid-1800s. We're now 170 years later, but still the same program of belief perseverance can lock us in and keep us doing the same things in so many different areas of our life.
So that when you were just talking about the washing of hands and everything, I just immediately was like, we can't right now in this point of our lives imagine not washing our hands like that. There's right. No way we would not wash our hands.
Right.
Even before anything going on right now, you know, like you wash your hands. That's just
right.
the thing to do. It's posted everywhere. And then now even taking it a little further, nurses and doctors, they have to change their gloves and change their masks in between every single patient. Right. And so that's just something we can't imagine not doing. But back then they couldn't imagine what would be the problem with washing your hands. So right. I go, well, if we like relating to the doctors and nurses back then, if we look at things in our life the same way that they looked at washing your hands as like, well, that's a crazy concept. Why would we even do that?
Right.
That makes no sense. There's no such thing as what now is the germ theory. There was no germs back then. But how can we relate ourselves to that, like in this time in our lives or any other time? Mm-hmm. Can we look at it and go, you know what, there could be something different or something possible for me that I thought would be completely impossible?
Okay, can I drop this one in?
Go ahead.
This is just Ronnie. Ronnie
yes.
loves space.
Do it.
I think to me, this is Ronnie. You guys don't think I'm crazy. But to me, it's the same idea that we're the only civilization in all of the whole universe. The observable universe, the Milky Way galaxy, hundreds and hundreds of billions of galaxies. And there's hundreds and hundreds of billions of stars within each galaxy. And to me, it's like thinking we're the only ones, and we reject or dismiss any information that could prove otherwise. That it's very dismissive. We say anybody that thinks that's a kook, they're crazy. The same kind of deal here. Now, this is just one thing, and
oh yeah, that can relate to so
many
other things.
Maybe we have a podcast at some point where I direct some of you all in the way of people who, from astronauts to Anyway, we're not doing that. I'm sorry. I just had to get it out. But it's the same kind of deal, right? And it's the same thing, I think, with religion sometimes. It's like, you look at the Christian faith even. There's 3,600 denominations within the Christian faith. And then not to mention other faiths, other beliefs, right? And so as we look at this, sometimes this is what we do, is like we are much like the colleagues of Ignaz Semmelweis who reject anything new, and we won't at least look at an idea or a possibility. And I think it just locks out so much potential.
Yeah, that could be completely helpful to humanity and our futures.
Yes, and you know how we're helpful to humanity is that we're helpful to ourselves.
Very.
And so I take care of me. I wash my own hands. I wash my hands of guilt and shame and neglect and resentment and bitterness. I wash my hands of all that. And then I keep moving forward. It's like, you know what, not carrying this into the delivery of the baby today. And I know probably most of us aren't delivering babies, but I mean, there is something being birthed out of all of us at any time. And, my children are birthing their possibilities for their future. I got to be careful I don't contaminate that with my own agenda, my own unresolved issues, that I'm not always going back to some old wound, rehashing it, reliving it. And I just become so addicted to my old dysfunction that I'm not willing to rid myself of it a bit, or at least make adjustments. Because Ignaz Semmelweis, his colleagues, they wouldn't make any adjustments at all. It was just like, nope, you're crazy. We find it offensive. We're going to have you thrown into a psych ward, and that's what they did. And he was beaten to death there.
Wow.
So it's sad, right?
Crazy.
And so
yeah, there's the saying, wash your hands clean of it, which means like if something happens in your life that's like a monumental stepping stone, or it could be negative or positive or whatever, but you say wash your hands clean of it, mostly I guess that has a negative connotation to it. And there's even in an Alanis Morissette song, wash my hands clean of this. But that's like taking something that might be a little bit bigger in your life. But I say, you know what, like each time, just as much as you have to wash your hands around the house or when you go out in public, wash your hands clean mentally and emotionally of anything else that might be invading your space, like your mind space, your heart space, your spirit space. Wash your hands clean of anything that could be trying to invade it, like the negativity, the self-doubt, the insecurities, the fear, whatever it is that you need to just wash clean. Every single time you wash your hands, think, you know what else do I need to wash my hands clean of? And I mean, not just physically washing your hands.
Yeah, and that's the idea of renewing your mind, taking a thought that you have, making it new again. Mm-hmm. So let me give the leadership principle in this, right? There's a saying that your greatest failure can be your greatest success. And I think I mentioned this in the last podcast, but this is where people think, that you can take a failure and you can turn it into great success. On some levels, that is very much true. But also in washing your hands, sometimes the thing that becomes your problem has been your greatest victory. In that, this worked up until this point, but maybe it's not going to work now. But because I am so absolutely bought in to the perseverance of this old identity that I have, and maybe that's what helped you to win back then, but you won't innovate because this is just how you've always done it. I think there's at least something in there that we could look at and say, hey, maybe just because this got us to here, that may not be what's going to get us to there. So what can I learn? Who can I learn from? What can I see? Could I step outside my industry? Could I step outside the way I do my life? Could I read some books, listen to some podcasts? Could I watch some videos? And maybe find something that I could assimilate in my life. Maybe I don't have to change everything 100%, but I could change 0.5%, 1%, 2%, and make some adjustments. And the next thing you know, you're continuing to grow, versus thinking that just because I've always believed this about myself, whether it be good or bad, that just because I believe that, it has to be true. And false truths produce true results. And the problem with that is you can believe something false about yourself, it produces a result. Then you assess the result, you justify the result in your own mind and say, well, I knew this was how it was going to be. And now you've fallen deeper and deeper into a program or a paradigm or a belief system. And it just feels much harder to get out of that.
So can you give an example of what a false truth is that one might start to believe in their life? Like you said, you may start to believe false truths for so long, but is that something that other people have implanted in our minds or?
Yeah. Okay. So you can take it from a vocational and occupational standpoint, is like that people are idiots. The only way that you can get them to do anything is to incentivize them. Yeah. And so I'm going to give them bonus for everything that they do. They get a bonus. Well, then guess what happens? over time, that might not have been the truth, but now you've given them so many bonuses that they won't do anything unless you give them a bonus.
Yeah, and that they're idiots.
And that they're idiots.
Yeah, right. I'm gonna keep being an idiot so that I can get a bonus.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be.
Yeah, the only way that I'm gonna step my game up is if somebody gives me something for it, right? And so, in a sense, it's not true. Like it's not true, but you create a truth within other people. But you can also believe, well, I'm not qualified to get the promotion, so I don't even apply for it. Yeah. And so when you don't apply for it, guess what happens? You don't get it. And then when you don't get it, you get to see that you don't get it, which justifies more of the thinking of I don't deserve it anyway.
Right.
So
the confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias, yes. What you look for, you find. What you don't want to find, you don't look for, or at least you don't see. Other thing, in a relationship, a person says, well, I don't think that type of person would ever have anything to do with me. They're way out of my league, and so I don't want to have anything to do with it. I'm not going to ask. I'm not even going to put myself out there.
And then they'll justify why they're not worth it.
Well, you tell yourself you're not worth it, you can't do it, and so you never ask. And so if you don't ask, the answer is always no.
Yeah.
And so these are the kind of things that I think are worth looking at. How do you take this? Well, I think you can take the Semmelweis principle and look at your own life and go, hey, what do I need to clean up? What can I clean up so that I can move forward? Can I take a lesson from something before that had my mind clouded, made my mind dirty of some old residue of garbage? Can I wash that, renew my mind, start over again, and start building from it? Now, you've got to be very careful in this, and I think this is what you want to look at, is that you could come from the standpoint of nothing matters, that it's all good in the end then. Then I could murder, I could rob, pillage, do anything that I want of anyone. And at the end, if I renew my mind, then it's all okay. People can exploit that. So there's all sorts of ways of looking at it. So what I believe it must come down to is us doing the best with what we have where we are at any given time. And you and I know for ourselves what is best. I don't know what's best for someone listening. I don't know what the next level looks like for them, but I can tell you that there are certain values that if we commit to, it can help us to move past this old idea that what we knew about ourselves back then is absolutely true, and that there's no reason and no way that for that to change, or that it can change.
Right.
And this is where I think we get locked in as a person. This is how our relationship, it becomes a 3 on a scale of 1 to 10, and we stay as roommates there because I believe something about my spouse. I believe something about myself. I believe something about marriage, that of course marriages don't work. They're not that passionate. They're not that good. This is what a person can believe, and they stay there. Right?
Yeah, and they focus on something that, what just came to my mind is that, what is it, the 60% of marriages fail right now?
It's like 50 and 60%.
50 and 60% of marriages fail. So you can hear that number and not even realize that you're planting that seed in your mind, and it can grow. And if you don't do the things around it, this is just marriage speaking or relationship speaking, if you don't do the things to help cultivate a healthy marriage and diminish that number in your mind, even though you don't realize it's even there, that's just what you're focusing on.
Yep. 60% of those people can get divorced, but not 60% of me and you.
Right.
In the sense that I don't need that number.
That's
I don't
good.
care what that is. I don't care what anybody else is doing. In that sense, I don't care. I'm going to stand for whatever value it is that I can stand for, and work with you on improving, getting better. Because if I believe that the moment we hit a threshold and it's difficult, that I bail, and 60% of the time, hey, I can justify that with 60% of people also bail.
Right.
You got to be really careful of locking on to something and then locking out all the potential of changing or improving or growing or making an adjustment.
Yeah, it's the conversation that you have spoken so many times about with scotomas and blind spots, and not allowing yourself to become blind to the potential.
Yeah, there's so much potential and so much possibility versus so much of what is called the prediction, and that you lay in bed and you predict that the day is going to be bad. You predict you're not going to close the deals. You predict you're not going to meet anybody new. You predict that your level of passion for life and the excitement of what's going to go down. You predict it, and then basically because you predict it, you feel a certain way in alignment with that prediction, and then you just lay in the bed, or it takes you forever to get started in your day. Instead of waking up every day and go, hey, there is a prediction. I think it's probably going to look like this, but you know what? There's also the possibility it could look very, very different as it pertains to new relationships, as it pertains to finding something new, a new hobby, something that's an interest for me. There's all sorts of possibility in the future. But Ignaz Semmelweis, his colleagues, they were so locked onto what they were taught in think of it, medical school in the early 1800s, that they think they already knew. And it goes back to the same thing with Henry Ford. Like Henry Ford created something really powerful with Ford Motor Company, but there was a time where he said the Model T Ford is perfect forever, that the car doesn't need to improve or change. That's a Model T Ford. Like my car is, I love my car. It's got twin turbos. It's fast. It is faster, more comfortable, more economical than the Model T Ford. It's a different driving experience because things continue to evolve and to improve.
Right.
What if Henry Ford was like, this is it? And we would have said, okay, fine. But Henry Ford also said if I would have given people what they wanted, I would have given them faster horses, right? Not a car.
Right.
And so we get locked on to how things have been. Anyway, the idea of all this, guys, is I think this is to come from that I wanted to share. And Jen, if there's anything else you want to add to it, you can. But I think that as it pertains to yourself, as it pertains to other people, as it pertains to your future, right? Just don't be so locked on to what you've made up about you. If it's not something that compels you to take some new action, do something new, create some new opportunities, create new relationships to stretch yourself. You say, I don't want to do that, Ronnie. Well, okay, then at least assess yourself and how you feel. And if you don't feel good about you, if you feel like there's something lacking, then at least be willing to confront whatever that thing is and do something about it. Stop complaining about it. Stop blaming other people. Stop blaming your past self for where you're at, where you're not, what you don't have, what gifts and talents you don't think you have. Stop blaming. Get rid of the guilt. Get rid of the judgment towards yourself and start new.
Yeah.
And wash your hands, baby.
Wash your hands clean of this.
That's it. Hey guys, just
I did have
No, we're done.
no, you got to stop talking.
Go ahead. What you got?
I did have one other takeaway for myself from all of this, in addition to washing our hands clean of leaving behind the fear, the self-doubt, negativity, etc. But one thing that for me I landed on here is that I'm a caretaker. I'm a mom. I take care of my husband, our home, and I feel like I'm taking care of a lot of different things. So one thing that I need to make sure that I'm doing is taking care of myself, like what you were saying earlier about the doctors washing their hands before they go in to take care of another patient, and how that now has proven to work. Like the doctors would take care of themselves first so that they could take care of someone else. And that speaks very highly to me, very strongly to me about taking care of myself so that I can take care of other people. So if you're in a relationship with anyone, if you have kids, or if you deal with people on any kind of front whatsoever, you have to take care of yourself so that you can take care of other people. Wash your hands first, so that you can then go and give a clean version of yourself to others.
Yeah, it's a Rohn Quote. And he said, I take care of me for you.
Right.
If you take care of
so
you for
good.
me. If you take care of you for me. So I take care of me for you. If you'll take care of you for me, that way together we're taking care of ourselves and we can help one another out. That's the premise for this whole conversation, is us taking responsibility for our thoughts, for our impulses, for all the things that we feel may be pulling us in a direction off of the path that can lead us to a healthier, better version of who it is that we are and that we believe at some point, or believed at some point, that we could be. You know, the problem is you believe that you could be something incredible at some point, and you get hit in the face a few times, you screw a few things up, you lose some money, you go bankrupt, you have a bad relationship, whatever that might be. Then you make up this story and you're like, now I just need to reprove that I was right about that story that I made up during that traumatic or difficult time. And, you know, as I've talked about before, you go through a traumatic time, your brain starts to look for the sources of it. Like how did that happen? What caused that? And if you can't really find it, you're like, oh, well, I must have been the cause to it. So instead of me doing anything new, I got to believe that I'm always the cause of all these problems and that I really can't do anything good. So I'm just going to stop attempting or stop trying to achieve anything more. And that's just, to me, that seems like a fast road to a really mediocre existence, and where people just they just don't seem to be as fulfilled and as excited. And right now is a really difficult time for a lot of people. All of us are being hit with this situation, I think, in a lot of different ways. But that doesn't in any way negate the responsibility that I have to be a great version of myself, holding myself to a higher standard so that I can help my family, my friends, right, my wife, my children, anybody, all the teams that I coach. There's a lot of things that I am considering all the time, and I can't take something that's unresolved. I can't take something unresolved in me always into this next session, the next time that I'm working with a team, because of something that was said in a session before, something somebody else was carrying.
Right.
In a sense, like the physician, I got to wash my hands of it.
Yeah.
And if not, you just start carrying lots and lots of stuff, and it starts to weigh you down. And so maybe today, listening to this, listening to Jen and I, listening to Jen Doss share her insight on this, you decide, hey, today's the day, enough's enough. I'm washing my hands of this. We're going to start over. I'm going to send a text, make a phone call. I'm going to write out a goal. I'm going to write out something I want to do. I'm starting right now. And as soon as this is over, this is it. Game on. And this is the beginning. Everything officially starts right now. That's a powerful place to be. So with that being said, guys, if you enjoy this podcast, would you please share it and also rate it? That's a big thing for us. If you can see that there where you can rate the podcast on,
means
on
the world.
your phone. That means the world to us. We have an upcoming Emerge virtual event coming up. It's June the 19th. We're going to do Emerge virtual. You can register for that on my website, ronniedoss.com. And also, we're doing Facebook Lives now. So if you haven't liked the Ronnie Doss page on Facebook, please do that, because we're doing Facebook Live sometimes a couple times a week. This is Jen and I talking. We're just talking about different things. She's asking me questions. I'm asking her questions. We're having a really great conversation. The feedback from those has been great. So that's Facebook Live. So if you would like or subscribe to that page.
Yeah, subscribe to
that page.
Like the page. And then visit us tomorrow for our Facebook Live. It's actually my birthday tomorrow. So I would love for you to join us for my birthday. My birthday gift is you joining us on Facebook Live tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern.
Yes, Facebook Live. So we'll be there, and happy birthday to you. Happy early birthday. It's going to be a super fun day. Thank you guys so much for being awesome, who you are. I look forward to talking to you guys again very, very soon. Take care.